It's a well-known fact that first movers tend to get the majority of the market share and benefits within their respective niche, but in an emerging market such as crypto with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano, I want to highlight why a research-driven approach may actually be the best solution to it all. What is going on, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central. My name is Fareed. In today's video, I want to highlight why the developmental approach that Cardano has been taking, the research and scientific based approach, will pay off in the end. Now, that said, there's been a lot of people chatting about the fact that Cardano has missed the first mover's advantage, and I want to highlight why that is not always the best thing. Now, to preface all of this, I recently sat down this past Friday with Charles Hoskinson, Aaron Barak, as well as Chris O, to have a 1-hour chat about the Midnight Network, which is going to be a data protection and privacy chain, and the brand new service layer approach that Cardano is taking. Now, in a nutshell, the simplest way that I can explain this approach to Cardano's methodology and just to Cardano's mass adoption is by being the core backbone and the core infrastructure provider for what they call the service layer or partner chains. So imagine Cardano being the Amazon, of Web3, in which they provide all of the infrastructure and tooling for these services to build upon, while always getting the security that they need from Cardano. And as the network evolves, we could see other networks as well being security or backbone providers. So that said, I'm going to be releasing an additional video highlighting what I've gathered so far in terms of the facts when it comes to Midnight. But please make sure to turn on those bell notifications. Make sure to go ahead and stay up to date, because that interview with Charles Hoskinson and Aaron Barak will be dropping in the next 24 hours. Now, I did release about 3 days ago my own personal explanation to Charles's latest Midnight chat, which was highlighted or called the Midnight Special. That breaks down the Cardano asset settlement layer, what the Dapp builders are currently doing right now, the bridges between the Cardano asset settlement layer and the service layer, as well as all the information nuance that we know so far when it comes to the settlement layer, the service layer, or the Midnight Network. Again, that's just my introductory look at everything. And of course, as there's more interviews and more information that comes out about that, I'll be updating everything that I know and providing additional videos. Now, the main focus for today's video is touching on companies, right, that we've seen and that we know within Web 2 that didn't necessarily benefit from having that first mover's advantage. So for those of you who are not aware, the first mover's advantage is basically a statement that talks about companies that are able to get a lot of the early adopters or a lot of the market share within their respective niche, given the fact that they're able to market or launch very first. Now, that said, yes, that does tend to benefit the companies that typically launch first or that are early adopters, but that doesn't always end up being the case. And I think that we're going to see that be true when it comes to Cardano. So again, a lot of people have said that Cardano has been taking their time, or IOG, in developing Cardano, that Cardano's a ghost chain. Obviously, I don't think that any of those things are true. We're seeing slow and steady adoption, while we're starting to see a trend in terms of the TVL and Dapp's building continuing to rise. And when you compare that against other networks, you're seeing that that is not the case. So Cardano is trending in the right direction. And then again, with my recent chat with Aaron and Charles about the service layer approach, I think this is going to bring major adoption within Cardano. Now, I do want to be clear, that is not going to happen overnight. I still think that there's quite a bit of time to go. We could probably see a lot of this really big infrastructure and a lot of this fourth generation type blockchain really coming along in the next bull run, or probably towards within, the 2028, 2029, 2030 timeline, right? So this is not something that's going to happen tomorrow. And again, that is just my personal thought. So I think that there's a lot of development to go. There's a lot of trial and error. Of course, I don't think that Midnight is going to take that long to deploy, but for everybody to really see the light and then get everybody on board with what Cardano is doing, I think could potentially take another bull run or two. Now, to kick things off, I just want to quickly highlight a couple of companies that had first movers advantage, but did not necessarily equate that to them actually being market leaders and still being alive today. So the first one I want to highlight is going to be Kodak. If you guys have ever seen one of their ads, you would know that they are a film company or a camera company. So they were quite known. Obviously, right now, they're not well known, or they're not still around. There's still other companies, for example, like Sony, etc. But what we saw was that they actually pioneered consumer photography and film. Now, early on, yes, they were adopted. What we did not see was them transition successfully into digital imaging. So that was their point of failure, being able or failing to pivot from consumer photography and film over into the digital or Web 2 space, or into the internet and digital imaging space. Now, very similarly, we have Nokia, who dominated the mobile phone network, or the mobile phone market, right? As of now, Nokia is basically dead in the water. What we do still have is going to be Apple, Android, and a few other providers, for example, like LG, Verizon, etc. Now, what they failed to do was to adapt to the smartphone era. So again, while you have the first mover's advantage, it doesn't necessarily equate to you being here in the long term. Now, I've got a couple more that I want to run through. Next is going to be Blockbuster. So they were first movers, within the video rental market. Now, we know that they were ousted by Redbox, at least within the United States here. And then more recently, we saw them being ousted by platforms like Hulu, also like Netflix. So what they failed to do was adapt to the digital streaming platform, or the digital streaming model. So again, it's a lot of early movers, but they're failing to pivot and see exactly what direction their niche is going in, and then adapting at a very early stage. What we did see was Apple being able to pivot, right? They basically started off with just, I believe, it was the music player, right? The iPod. And then that evolved into iTunes. And then they did the iPhone, then the iPad. Now they're doing watches, earbuds, headphones. And so they were quickly able to pivot and kind of maneuver their product to be fluid, especially as the space grew. Now, last but not least is going to be MySpace. So MySpace was actually one of the first movers within the social networking space. Obviously, as we know now, they are heavily dominated by platforms, for example, like not Facebook, Facebook to be one of them, but also like Instagram, we've got Twitter, and then now YouTube as well. So these guys basically overtaken due to poor strategic manipulation or maneuvers, and they have paid the price. So all four of those companies that I just mentioned there, Kodak, Nokia, Blockbuster, and MySpace, failing to adapt with the times. Now, you might be wondering, what is the point of all this, and where am I going with this conversation? So when we look at blockchain, again, we've got Bitcoin, the big daddy, right? Very first one to come out, really introduced a ton of concepts, brought over security and a lot of reliability. Now, Bitcoin is great. However, it doesn't have the programmability or the smart contract support that we have here on Cardano. Now, following Bitcoin, we saw the release of Ethereum, which did have smart contracting support. However, they're using the account-based model, which we now know is not the most efficient. And so while they did do something better than Bitcoin, they were still missing a piece of that equation. So we then saw a third generation blockchain. So Bitcoin being first generation, Ethereum being second generation, and then Cardano coming third, in order to take advantage of the extended UTXO model, bringing along the robustness, security, and reliability of Bitcoin. However, they also had the programmability and smart contract capabilities that Ethereum had implemented. So I think that with Cardano, we are on the right path. We've learned from both of our generations prior, but then now with the adoption of Midnight and the inclusion and creation of this brand new service layer approach, we're pivoting into the next step when it comes to blockchain evolution. Again, I know there's been a lot of commentary, surrounding the fact that Midnight might actually be a bad thing for Cardano. But the more I hear about Midnight, the more I am beginning to believe that this is just a trial case for this brand new service framework that will be able to benefit blockchain as a whole. So some of the benefits of not always being the first mover include the following. And I think I've already touched on some of these, but number one, you're able to learn from the prior builders' mistakes. So again, it's not that Bitcoin had any mistakes, but we were able to learn that we needed smart contracting capabilities and therefore able to utilize that. We were able to learn that the account-based model from Ethereum may not necessarily have been the best, even though it was easier to get to market and get that early market share. So some of the latecomers, for example, like Cardano, are able to learn from the successes and failures of first movers, enabling us to make more informed decisions. Hopefully that makes sense and you're able to see how that point fits within this bigger argument. Number two, technological leapfrogging. So late entrants can now leverage newer and more advanced technologies, leapfrogging limitations from early solutions. Again, this is very similar to that first point where we're able to see, what is the best that Bitcoin can do? What are some really positive things that Ethereum has brought forward? And then how can we now begin to build on top of that? As a quick example, I want to just highlight the Cardano staking and how liquid it is, right, compared to staking on Ethereum and the fact that there's no staking at all on Bitcoin. So on Cardano, you're able to delegate to more than, I believe, 2,900 stake pool operators anytime that you wish. The tokens never leave your wallet and you can stop delegating at any time. There's no limit or minimum amount that you can actually delegate. So if you just want to delegate one ADA, you're able to do that, right? And so those are just some of the perks that we have with Cardano's liquid staking. And if you take a look at Ethereum, again, not a knock on them, but just a fair comparison, you don't have the amount of validators or nodes. And when you stake, you actually have to give over custody of your assets. And then there is slashing in the event that something negative were to happen with the actual node operator. And again, that's one of the features that we don't have on Cardano. So these are things that we have seen in other spaces. And because we weren't there or building at the same exact time that they were, we're able to leapfrog and do something different and better along the process. Now, that doesn't mean that Cardano is the best. Cardano still has things that they could have done better, right? So maybe we begin to see those things implemented better or reworked as a part of this brand new service layer approach. Now, number three, market research advantage. Again, this is very similar to technological leapfrogging. Because we're able to come in at a much later stage, we're able to benefit from the market research conducted directly by the first movers, understanding customer needs and understanding just the entire market a lot more comprehensively. So when you think of what it is exactly that people want from a blockchain, things, for example, like privacy and data protection, are going to be key. And those are going to be some of the focuses moving forward in fourth generation blockchains like we're going to be seeing with Midnight. Number four is going to be cost efficiency. So again, with early movers, a lot of times they face higher cost due to pioneering efforts. Latecomers can actually capitalize on that, providing a more cost-efficient technology or technology stack, as well as strategies. So we're able to spend less in order to build more than the prior entrants within the market. For example, think of the computer, right? If you take a look back at 1980s, 1990s, before all of these slim and skinny 2-inch computers came out, you had big bulky desktops, even with televisions, right? You had these big tube TVs. And as time progressed, there were new markets and new people that came into the space that were able to learn, right? And provide customer research and utilize that information in order to provide better products that better fit, but they were also able to provide those at a much cheaper cost. And so when you look at the price of a TV now, right, compared to, for example, early 2000s, if you're looking to purchase a 32-inch TV, that is going to cost you maybe $100, $200 at the most. But if you go all the way back to early 2000s for the same flat screen TV, that was a brand new innovation at the time that may have cost you a couple of thousands of dollars. So as time progresses, more research is done, improvements are made, things become cheaper and easier to implement. And so again, it's not always best to be first because you don't have a lot of the foresight and you don't necessarily know exactly how much cheaper things will be in the future. Now, one other thing that I do want to highlight is going to be regulatory clarity as well. So Bitcoin during the early days was used for a lot of illicit activity. That is still somewhat the case, but not as much as before. And the narrative around it has also changed. So you can imagine that, being early into the market, yes, you do get the advantages of the market share, but there's also uncertainty surrounding regulations, and crypto has really faced that. So over the course of the past couple of years, we've seen countries now call Bitcoin legal tender, and countries are now becoming more crypto friendly. But if you came in early, you would have been stifled by a lot of those regulatory hurdles. So again, the time that you kind of lose out in terms of being the first mover, you're able to kind of recoup that by having some clarity, cost efficiency, and just a better overall understanding of what the actual market wants. That way, when you launch a product, you're able to actually make sure that it hits the niche target audience that you're aiming for. So those are just a few things. I do want to basically go through some more. I'll probably line up another video to kind of break this down. But to sum it up in a nutshell, I wanted to just highlight the fact that, yes, Cardano has been taking its time. IOG, the Cardano Foundation, Emergo, have really been doing their best. And it's going to take time. We're building a tech stack to be the financial backbone of the global financial ecosystem, right? So this is not a blockchain that is built for one specific use case. This is built for the entire world. This is not going to happen overnight, but what we are starting to see are some of the key pieces that are needed in order for us to make this vision come alive. So I urge you guys, if you guys have not already done so, check out all of Charles's latest talks, especially the midnight special that really enlightened me. Again, stay tuned for my interview dropping very soon, talking about midnight and the brand new service layer approach. But I wanted to just kind of reignite the passion that I have for Cardano, but also share that with you guys. But then also hopefully re-energize you guys by reminding you, right, that first movers is not always best. Yes, there are some positives that come out of the first movers advantage, but I don't always think that is the best approach, especially with something like blockchain, where we're aiming to have no rollbacks, right, which Cardano's never had one. We're aiming to have no downtime, which Cardano's now been up for over 6 years. And then we're also aiming to have an immutable ledger, right? So a lot of things that we can't necessarily undo. So instead of trying to test things mid-flight, it's better to make sure that everything with the airplane is solid, and everything within the actual fuel system and everything that you need to take off and land safely is in the works, or is functional, before you take off. We've seen a lot of projects theoretically take off, with faulty wheels, with faulty engines, and they end up trying to fix things mid-flight. Cardano is not taking that approach. And again, that really shows not only in Charles, but also shows in IOG's approach and their peer review approach to developing and providing quality software, right, and quality infrastructure when it comes to Cardano. Again, I'm going to be really touting this brand new service model approach. I know it's going to take years to develop, but I definitely think that this is the way for Cardano to become a powerhouse. And I'm going to be releasing more content in the coming days, highlighting and simplifying, hopefully, right, for you guys, what the benefits of this brand new service model approach are. So that is going to do it here for today. I'll be breaking down some additional benefits of not always being first in future videos. If you guys enjoyed a video like this, I would definitely appreciate it if you guys could tap that like button. Not only does it help to get this content out to other members within the growing Cardano ecosystem, it also lets YouTube algorithm know that I'm doing a great job and pushing it out to more and more members. That said, if you guys have any questions surrounding anything I broke down as a part of today's video, or if you just want to chat about Cardano in general, feel free to leave a comment down below. If it's your first time stopping by Dapp Central and you want more content like this, breaking down all the information going on in Cardano, consider subscribing. And last but not least, if you learned anything along the way, I would appreciate you again if you could smash that like button. It really does make a difference here on the channel. That said, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video.